Stand in front of your hydrangea this morning and really look at it. It is lush and green, bigger than last year, and by every sign you were taught to trust, it is a happy, well-cared-for plant. So why does it have nothing to show for it? Not one bloom. Here is what almost nobody tells you. Your hydrangea did not fail you. Months ago, with the best of intentions, you quietly did one of a few things that erased this whole summer of flowers before it ever had a chance. None of them feel like mistakes at the time. All of them are easy to fix. And by the end of this, you will know exactly which one cost you. There are 7 of these, and I have arranged them so that the one that explains the most flowerless hydrangeas in America comes right in the middle. Stick with me because the deeper we go, the more likely it is that you are going to recognize your own bush in one of them. Number 1. You pruned at the wrong time and cut off this year's flowers without knowing it. This is the big one, so let me slow down here. Most of the hydrangeas in older gardens are the big leaf type, the ones with the round mophead blooms in blue, pink, or purple. And here is the thing about that type that nobody explains when you buy it. It sets next year's flower buds at the end of the previous summer. Those buds form on the stems that grew this year, and they sit there, tiny and tucked in, all through fall and winter, waiting for spring. So picture what happens when you go out in October feeling tidy, and you cut that bush down by half to neaten it up for winter. You just threw away every flower bud it had already made. Cutting old wood off a big leaf hydrangea in fall is exactly like throwing out next year's seed packets because the envelopes looked a little messy on the shelf. The seeds were fine. You just could not see them, so you tossed them. Then spring comes. The plant pushes out gorgeous green leaves, and you wonder where the flowers went. They went into your yard waste bag last October. How do you know if this is your problem? Ask yourself one question. Did your hydrangea bloom beautifully the first year you got it, and then go quiet after you started pruning it? That pattern points straight at this mistake. A plant that bloomed and then stopped once you took over the pruning is almost always a plant that is getting cut at the wrong time. The fix is simple, and it is all about timing. For big leaf and oak leaf hydrangeas, which both bloom on old wood, prune them right after they finish flowering in summer and never again. By late summer, the plant is already building next year's buds, so once August rolls around, you put the pruners down and walk away. If a stem is dead, you can remove it any time. Dead wood has no buds to lose. But living stems get touched only in that short window right after the blooms fade. Proven Winners, the plant company, lays this out clearly in their pruning guide, and the rule holds across the old wood types. Number 2. You have been feeding it, and that is the problem. This one stings a little, because feeding feels like love. You see a big healthy plant, you want to help it along, so you reach for the fertilizer, maybe a lawn feed, or a general-purpose granular, and you sprinkle it around the base. And the bush rewards you with leaves. Big, glossy, dark green leaves and not a single flower. Here is the mechanism. Most cheap, general fertilizers are heavy in nitrogen, the first number on the bag. Nitrogen tells a plant to grow leaves and stems. It is the foliage button. When you give a hydrangea a steady diet of nitrogen, you are basically handing a kid an unlimited plate of bread and then wondering why they have no room left for anything else. The plant fills up on green growth and has no energy left over to make flowers. Phosphorus, the middle number, is the one tied to blooming, but you cannot fix this by dumping bloom booster on top of the problem. You fix it by easing off. How do you know if this is you? If your hydrangea is enormous leafy and lush but bare of flowers, and especially if it sits near a lawn, you fertilize, suspect nitrogen. Lawn feed does not stay on the lawn. It washes and spreads right into the root zone of nearby shrubs. Penn State Extension points to excess nitrogen as a common reason these shrubs grow lush and refuse to bloom. The fix is to stop feeding it so much, or stop feeding it at all for a season. Keep your lawn fertilizer well away from the base of the plant. If you want to feed it all, use a light hand with something balanced or slightly higher in the middle number, once in early spring, and then leave it alone. A hydrangea, growing in decent garden soil with a little compost worked in each year, rarely needs more than that. Often, the kindest thing you can do for a flowerless, overfed hydrangea is simply nothing. Number 3. Late spring frost is quietly killing the buds. You did everything right. You pruned at the correct time. You went easy on the fertilizer. The buds are sitting there ready to open. And then, one cold night in April or May, after the plant has already started waking up, the temperature drops below freezing for a few hours. By morning, the new growth looks fine, but those tender flower buds took the hit. They blacken, they shrivel, and they never open. The leaves keep coming because leaf buds are tougher, but the flowers are gone for the year. Think of it like leaving a tray of seedlings on the porch and getting caught by one surprise cold snap overnight. The hardy stuff shrugs it off. The most delicate thing on the tray is the first to die. On a hydrangea, the flower buds are that delicate thing. How do you know if this is your problem? Look at the timing and the pattern. If your hydrangea leaves out beautifully every spring, but the buds turn brown and mushy and drop, and if you remember a cold snap after a warm stretch, frost is your culprit. This is especially common in gardens where the plant sits in a low spot, because cold air settles and pools in the lowest part of the yard, the way water would. The fix is protection on the nights that matter. When a late frost is in the forecast and your hydrangea has already started growing, throw an old bedsheet or a frost cloth over the whole bush in the evening and take it off in the morning once the air warms. Do not use plastic directly on the leaves. It transfers the cold right through. A sheet or a light blanket traps just enough ground warmth to carry the buds through the night. And for the long run, if frost is a regular visitor, plant new hydrangeas on the warmer side of the house, away from those low, cold pooling corners. Number 4. It is sitting in too much shade or the wrong kind of light for its type. Hydrangeas have a reputation as shade plants, and that reputation gets a lot of bushes into trouble. Most of them want morning sun and afternoon shade, not deep, all-day shade under a dense tree. A hydrangea makes flowers using energy from sunlight. Park it in a dark corner where it gets an hour of weak light a day, and it simply does not collect enough fuel to build blooms. It will survive, it will grow leaves, but it cannot afford the luxury of flowering. This is like trying to run your whole house off a single dim window. The lights might flicker on, but you cannot run the oven and the washing machine at the same time. There just is not enough power coming in. A shaded hydrangea is running its leaves on what little light it gets and has nothing left over for the flowers. How do you know if this is you? Watch the spot over the course of a single day. If your hydrangea gets less than 3 or 4 hours of direct sun and the rest of the day it sits in deep shade, light is likely your limiting factor. A plant that used to bloom and slowly stopped over several years often has a tree that grew up around it and stole its sun without anyone noticing. The fix depends on what you can change. Sometimes you can thin out a few overhanging branches on the tree above and let more light filter down. Sometimes the better answer is to move the hydrangea in early spring or fall to a spot with bright morning sun. Most big leaf and panicle types bloom best with a good helping of morning light and a break from the harsh afternoon. Match the plant to a spot where it can actually see the sky for part of the day, and you give it the means to flower. Number 5. It dried out at exactly the wrong moment. The word hydrangea has water built right into it, and that is no accident. These plants are thirsty, and they wilt dramatically the moment they get dry. A little wilting on a hot afternoon is normal, and the plant bounces back by evening. But repeated, serious drought stress, especially in mid to late summer, does something you will not see until next year. That is the very window when the old wood types are setting their buds for the following season. A plant that is gasping for water during bud, set quietly, decides it cannot afford to make as many flowers, and it makes fewer or none. Here is the home version of that. When money is tight, you cut the extras first. You do not stop paying the electric bill, but the new flowers, the nice-to-haves, those get cut. A drought-stressed hydrangea does the same accounting. Survival first leaves to stay alive, and flowers get cut from next year's budget. How do you know if this is your problem? If your hydrangea sits in a hot, sunny, sandy, or fast-draining spot and you water it only now and then, and you noticed it wilting hard through July and August last year, thirst at bud set is a strong suspect. The damage shows up a full year later, which is exactly why this one is so hard to catch. The fix is steady moisture, particularly through the second half of summer. Give it a deep, slow soak once or twice a week, rather than a quick daily splash, so the water reaches down to the roots instead of just wetting the surface. Then lay down a few inches of mulch, shredded bark, or leaf mold in a ring around the base, keeping it off the stems. Mulch is like a lid on a pot. It keeps the moisture from evaporating away and holds the soil cool and damp far longer between waterings. Protect the plant through bud set, and you protect next year's flowers. If you are finding this helpful, take a second to subscribe, because this channel is all about getting more out of your garden without spending more. And there is plenty more coming. Number 6. You are growing a type that simply cannot survive your winters. This is a heartbreaker, because the gardener did nothing wrong at all, except buy the wrong plant for the climate. Many of the prettiest big-leaf hydrangeas, the classic blue and pink mopheads, are only reliably hardy down to a certain cold. Their flower buds, the ones formed the previous summer and sitting exposed on the stems all winter, can only take so much freezing. In a truly cold zone, those buds freeze solid and die every single winter, even though the rest of the plant survives. So every spring, the plant leaves out, looks healthy, and never blooms year after year after year. It is like keeping a houseplant from the tropics out on an unheated porch through a northern winter. The pot survives, the roots survive, but the part you actually wanted, the bloom, cannot take that kind of cold and dies back every time. The University of Massachusetts notes that bud-killing winter cold is a leading reason these big-leaf hydrangeas fail to flower in colder regions. How do you know if this is you? If you are in a cold winter area and your big-leaf hydrangea has never bloomed or blooms only in the rare mild year, and the stems always seem to die back to the ground over winter, the climate is beating it. Reblooming varieties help here because they can flower on new growth too. But the old standard mopheads will keep breaking your heart. The fix is to choose hydrangeas that match your cold. Panicle hydrangeas, the cone-shaped white ones that often turn pink in fall, and smooth hydrangeas like the well-known Annabelle, both bloom on new wood. That means they make their flower buds in spring on fresh growth, so it does not matter if winter kills the old stems to the ground. They start fresh every year and bloom no matter how brutal the winter was. If you are in a cold zone and you are tired of bare mopheads, those new wood types are your dependable friends. Number 7. You keep tidying it, and the tidying is the harm. This is the gentlest mistake, and it comes from a good place. You like a neat garden. So every time you walk past your hydrangea, you snip a stray stem here, shorten a long branch there, just keeping it looking sharp. The trouble is that on an old wood hydrangea, every one of those little tidying cuts can be taking off a stem that was holding flower buds. You are not making one big mistake in October. You are making 100 tiny ones all season long, and they add up to the same empty result. It is the difference between cleaning out the garage in one careful afternoon and grabbing one random item to toss every time you walk through. Do it often enough without looking closely, and eventually you have thrown out something you needed without ever deciding to. How do you know if this is you? Be honest about your habits. If you are someone who cannot walk past a shrub without trimming something, and your hydrangea is healthy but stingy with flowers, your sewn steady hand may be the problem. The fix is restraint, and it ties everything together. On old wood types, resist the urge to shape and snip through the season. Let the plant grow. If it gets too big for the spot, that is a sign it was the wrong size plant for that location. Not a problem you should solve with constant cutting. Do your one round of pruning right after blooming if you must, and then keep your hands off until next summer. So which one was yours? Step back and notice the pattern that runs underneath all 7 of these. A hydrangea is working on a schedule it set last year. The old wood types, your big leaf and oak leaf hydrangeas, made this summer's flower buds at the end of last summer, and they have been carrying them through fall, winter, and spring. So nearly everything that goes wrong, the fall pruning, the frost, the drought at bud set, the constant tidying, comes down to the same thing. Something happened to those buds between the time the plant made them and the time they were supposed to open. Your job is not to chase blooms with feed and fuss. Your job is to protect the buds the plant already made and then get out of its way. And here is the one piece of knowledge that ties the whole thing together. So write this down. You need to know whether your hydrangea blooms on old wood or new wood, because that single fact decides everything about when and whether you prune. The simplest test is to watch where the flowers come from in spring. If the blooms appear on the old woody stems that were there last year, you have an old wood bloomer, the big leaf and oak leaf types, and you prune only right after flowering, never in fall. If the flowers come up on brand new green growth that pushed from the base this season, you have a new wood bloomer, the panicle and smooth types, and you can cut those back in late winter or early spring with nothing to lose. When in doubt, the safest move of all is to not prune for a full year and just watch. A year of patience tells you exactly what kind of plant you have, and it costs you nothing but one season of waiting. Your hydrangea has not given up on you. It has just been quietly asking you to learn its schedule. Once you do, the flowers come back, and they keep coming back year after year with far less work than you have been putting in. If this helped you make sense of your own bare bush, leave a comment and let me know which of the 7 you think was yours. And stick around the channel for more plain talk gardening that saves you money and frustration.